Hi, this is Tori Nook, and welcome back to the Tori Nook Talk Show, where real conversations meet real success. I'm Tori Nook, the CEO and founder of Anchor Retail. I'm an entrepreneur, wife, and mom of three. In each episode, I feature founders, entrepreneurs, wellness leaders, personal development voices who've built their successful careers and their lives with intention, intuition, and a strong sense of who they are. And I hope you enjoy the show because today I have my first guest who is a college professor of a very elite real estate school in the United States, Andy Hunt. And welcome, Andy.
Thanks, Tori. It's great to join you today, and what a privilege to be on the show.
Yeah, I'm really honored to have you on and grateful that Mark Sims, a mutual friend, introduced us. I
Talk about
know
good people in real estate, right?
he is. Oh my God, what a wonderful guy to work with and do deals with, and wholesome, very good at what he does, sharp, pays on time. Like you can't beat it, right?
Amen. Yes, yes.
Amen to that, right? Well, I want to give the audience a little introduction here on you and your bio. So, Andy's executive director of Vieth Institute for Real Estate Leadership at Marquette University, which I'm sure many people in the real estate world are familiar with. It is ranked in the top 12 U.S. News and World Report, where he leads interdisciplinary initiatives across business, engineering, law, while shaping the next generation of real estate leaders. He's also the co founder of the Real Estate Asset Program, REAP, the first undergraduate focused real estate investment program of its kind. And it also serves as a key education partner for ACRE, an organization focused on increasing diversity in commercial real estate. Before returning to Marquette, Andy worked in acquisitions and investment roles with Real Capital Solutions and Prologis, where he was involved in over $1 billion worth of real estate transactions across the United States. He also began his career as a broker in the trenches like me with a company that many are familiar with that was Cushman Wakefield. Andy has been recognized as the Milwaukee Business Journal 40 Under 40 honoree and a NAIOP developing leader. He holds both his undergraduate and his MBA degrees from Marquette University, and he lives in Wisconsin with his wife and three kids. Quite the bio.
It, having three kids seems to be another commonality between us, Tori.
I know, right? And our
Well,
Jesuit
busy.
Catholic background too. So, what I'd like to start with is like when you look back on your early life, because we're going to start beginning to end here. What were some of the experiences or influences that shaped who you are today and what you're doing today?
Tori, when a student comes in and we're advising them and we're talking about classes or hopefully getting more into talking about life and what career path they should follow and things like that,
Yeah.
I almost always ask them the same question, and
Mhm.
that's so who do you know in your family or friends of your parents or things like that who works in commercial real estate, and it
Mhm.
feels like 9 times out of 10 they have a name or a couple of names that they mention, and
That's impressive.
especially in this field, I think this is really common, right? So I'm one of those. My dad is a civil engineer, and he worked for a big design and develop company that's based here in the Midwest for
Okay.
25 years. And so I grew up watching him build buildings. It was not
Oh, cool.
uncommon that we would be driving around. And I grew up in Minneapolis. It was not uncommon to be driving around, and he'd say, "Oh yeah, I built that building." And as a kid, how cool
Mhm.
is that, right? Your
It
dad
is cool.
built these buildings, yeah. So that's a little bit about me. Was I knew that pursuing engineering was not going to be for me, but I really
Mhm.
love the idea of business, and I still
Yeah.
remember vividly
Mhm.
being in an all freshman class, and this was the fall. It was one of those classic fall days
Mhm.
where it's a little bit chilly and the leaves are on the ground, and you're walking around and you're hearing the crunch, right? And I remember sitting in on one of these classes where they kind of exposed you to these different career paths.
Mhm.
And that day, they were talking about this new major. This is back in 2004, called commercial real estate, that they were launching at Marquette. And I remember leaving that class and calling my dad, and everything had clicked into place. I said, "Dad, I think I'm going to major in real estate."
Mhm.
And I have never looked back from that moment. And not everybody is lucky enough to have a moment like that,
No,
right?
most people don't really know what they want to do, even though they pick a major. But yeah.
Totally, yeah. So it has been, I cannot imagine a better field to be in. I love everything about our industry. I love the people. I love the relationships that you build. I know you're a really relationship driven person. I know
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
a lot of the people that watch your show probably are exactly the same way. It really drives us. And so it's really my favorite thing. And now getting to bring that into a student context, to, teaching and using this as a talent development pipeline, it's so meaningful, right? That ability to
Yeah.
kind of serve and give back in that way, um,
Yeah.
and that's what drives me on a day to day basis, Tori, for sure.
So I love that. So it's interesting that you knew that pivotal point, and then here you are. I mean, you did go through brokerage, institutional investing, academia. Like, how many years were you like in each over
Yeah,
that span?
yeah, for sure. So really, so I spent a couple of years in brokerage, and
Hmm.
just like you, it was tenant rep stuff. So
Okay.
the company was called UGL Equis at the time. Some people
Mhm.
that are watching might remember that company. Eventually acquired by Cushman Wakefield at the end of the day. But that was my first job, and I remember starting. My first day was November 3rd of 2008.
Okay.
I started off as this junior, tenant rep broker in the Twin Cities. And of course, the market was starting to crater at the time. It was the day
That's a
before the
tough time to start.
2008 presidential election, uh,
Yeah.
which is a just a wild time. And so, what a time to start your career, right? So, bro, and of course, we all have stories from things like that, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
making, countless cold calls, um,
Hmm.
and some of the stories and the things that people said to me during that time
Yeah.
were pretty
I know
wild.
you could
I'm
write
sure
everyone
you
could write
have
a
your
book.
own, right?
Your first year in brokerage. Yeah.
Totally, yeah. I worked at Marquette for 4 years during my mid to late 20s. During that time period, that's when I got my MBA for free, which was great. I worked for Prologis for about 2 years after that. My wife and I decided to we're millennials, so we decided to move to Denver because we're millennials. So we were out there for a couple of years. I also had a short stint working for a high net worth family office based in there, doing financial analyst work.
Hmm.
And then we had our first daughter, and decided to move close to home because we're
Yeah.
millennials, right?
Yeah. It's so much easier.
Right, exactly. And that's when I kind of came back to Marquette,
Hmm.
but in this leadership role, leading what was then the Center for Real Estate, and then as of 2 years ago, the Vieth Institute for Real Estate Leadership, which was launched with an incredible $10 million gift from Perry and Sheila Vieth, an amazing family who is so dedicated to student success. That it would just inspire the heck out of you and give you chills if we had time to get into that story.
Okay.
But
Maybe
yeah,
we
it's
could
been
get
it's
into
been
it
a
later.
really fun path, a path filled with stories that I can share from other people that have inspired me as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so it sounds like, you took this leap of, in a way, like a leap of faith into
Amen.
education. And what's nice is like you have like a real, because I think that's a lot of thing people talk about professors. It's kind of like politicians, like they never really most of them never really run a business. And I think even a lot of professors have just taught their whole life, but you actually you got a really nice, diverse resume, really. In all the different commercial real estate sectors you were in. So you can really understand what you're bringing forth to the school, the students, with your background because you've been there. I mean, you worked in over $1 billion of transactions, at a younger, age in your 20s, your 30s. Um, what did that even teach you about, even decision making under pressure? Like, what were the biggest things? Because doing deals is an adrenaline rush too. I mean,
Totally.
what what did what did you get out of that experience to bring into the school? Because I don't think kids really understand until maybe they're interning what the real world's really like in real estate.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll start with that student perspective, by the way, and then kind of bring it
Mhm.
back.
Yeah.
Students are trying to figure out the world and trying to figure out
Right.
what they don't know, and
Mhm.
that's a big process. And the best real estate programs that I really admire nationally, they kind of all play it the same way, which is we try to get our students out into the real world as much as possible. That's why things like taking
I like that.
take 10 students every year to ICSC, guys like Mark Sims are running around with some of them and letting them sit in on meetings and giving them career advice. And that's where when we think back, all of us, when we think back to
Mhm.
our time in college, it was some of those experiences that were truly life changing. It wasn't necessarily one particular class
Right.
or one moment in a class, but
Mhm.
you're never going to forget sitting on the
Right.
side of a deal between a broker and a developer in Las Vegas,
Mhm.
for a transaction in suburban Cleveland. And you're like, hey,
Right.
that sounds like a really fun deal. I didn't even realize these were the two sides, that
Right.
it would come to a negotiating table. And you just never forget those experiences. You know what I mean?
I love that their school pushes that because that's why I'm sitting here doing what I'm doing is because John Carroll's business school also really pushed internships and getting real world experience. And you guys even take it a step further, taking them to conferences, which is huge, and having mentors even go with them because ICSC, just to give them a plug, I mean, they do give discounts to students and
Yes.
it is worth the money. I mean, that is just like a mini internship for 2 days within itself to be mentored by someone there and just be with all these like high rollers, deal makers, and big time decision makers, and just even see the lingo, how they talk. Cause there's a whole psychology behind it too, and getting things done, right? And getting
Amen.
deals done.
I think,
Uh,
and we all remember that time, right? By the way, God
mhm.
bless John Carroll, Marquette,
Yeah.
these good old Jesuit
Yeah.
schools.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, we talk about, I just have to say, Tori, we talk about servant leadership all the time here. It's not
Right.
just something we say. I mean,
Yeah.
it's something you live, right? And I
Right.
know
You
that's
live it day
something
to
that
day.
you live by as well. I know you're a
Mhm.
servant leader. So
Right.
I just had to throw that out there, you know?
No, it's hugely important, I think, for a school and a business to be a servant leader.
Yeah.
Um, and I praise anyone who even knows that word because I really only, I don't come across too many people who really follow it.
Yeah. Well, we came we kind of put that into our value statement of, years ago as
Oh,
we were building up the institute and saying
right.
that we really believe that servant leadership is the only way
Mhm.
to lead. And I remember having someone, a leader in our city here in Milwaukee, come to me and say, "Well, I don't think that's the only way to lead." And I took this person through the thought process behind that, which is, listen, if you are leading in a way where you're serving others, what you're really doing is you're helping to maximize them on an everyday basis. Even if they
Mhm.
work for you, in a lot of ways, by serving them, you are helping your entire company and creating that kind of
Right.
culture where you serving them
Right.
leads to them serving others as well.
Right.
That turns into what I believe is the closest thing to a really fulfilling life that I
For
can
sure.
imagine. Certainly when you bring in, the opportunity to mentor
Mhm.
students and get involved in things
Yeah.
like that, whatever university that is closest to
Totally. Yeah.
you're at anywhere in the country,
Right.
the level of meaning there and the level of paying it forward and
Mhm.
serving others. I think that's the best kind of life, Tori. I know that's a lot for you as well because you give quite a bit
Yeah.
yourself.
Oh, yeah. And so to me, you technically the Institute isn't just, traditional education. Like you're changing it by even putting it in, writing that you're being a servant leader. But what other things are you trying to change, or what else have you put into like what's not really technically traditional education at a university?
Yeah, I'm gonna go at this from the angle of higher education is really changing a lot. We all know
Okay.
it. We read
Yeah.
about it,
Right.
and I think the value proposition is being
Mhm.
redefined as well. And what you're going to
Okay.
notice on a national basis is there are schools that kind of understand some of this and are adjusting, and there are schools that are really adhering to a little bit more of your kind of classic model. Um,
Mhm.
we really believe that number one, um, the the your ability to connect with industry
Yeah.
is super important. So
Huge.
universities are going to be winners when they
Mhm.
lean in on the relationships with corporations. And by the way, I believe vice versa is true as well. You may or may not have heard of this concept of the demographic cliff in this country. And, for those that aren't familiar with this,
Yeah. You could
so what
explain it.
happened was in 2008, right around that, as we
Yeah.
got into the Great Recession,
Right.
the great financial crisis,
Mhm.
you people had to make really hard decisions about what they would do, to impact their own situation there financially. That, and if you were kind of childbearing age at that time, you had to decide: Am I going to bring a child into the world right now, knowing that it's really challenging? And so, for about 5 years, between 2008 to 2013, as many as 1 million fewer babies were born per year during that stretch. And that may not sound like a lot, but in the college going age nationally in this country, that makes a really big dent. And so, fast forward 18 years, those babies that were born in 2008 are turning 18 in 2026.
Mm-hmm.
They are starting to make decisions about whether or not they want to go to college. And
Right.
if they do, where do they want to go? And
Mm-hmm.
overall, there are fewer of those that exist nationally that are making those choices. And so what that means is that a lot of schools have to make hard decisions about if we're having fewer students go to college, what does that mean for our tuition base? What does that mean for our ability to pay our bills, to keep our doors open?
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
those now, and it's, like anything, the schools at the very top almost aren't feeling this at all.
Right.
Then you have another, let's call it 100 schools that are really close to that top
Right.
4,000, by the way. There's 4,000 colleges and universities. But
Right.
that next 100, they're going to feel the effects, but they're probably going to be fine as well. And then beyond that, it can get a little bit scary. And so, Marquette is certainly kind of in that right, kind of below
Right.
that really, really top tier. So we're feeling it, but we're also adjusting. And
Mm-hmm.
so getting closer to corporations so that we
Mm-hmm.
can help drive internship and job opportunities for our students, which, by the way, is really driven by those experiential learning opportunities
Right.
that I kind of put it this way. If alums are saying to us, man, I wish I had that back when I was in college, right? I think we've all said that in certain ways.
Yes.
We're probably doing our job well, right?
Right.
Because
I
you have to
agree.
be constantly adjusting and adapting to that. And so, I think that's the world that we're in. Is you got to look for those schools that are making those adjustments
Mm-hmm.
to really, be able to justify that really high cost of
Right.
education these days.
No, I agree. You've got to have a value prop ad. And you're only going to get that by getting really good internships and careers for your students.
It feels like table stakes at this point, right?
But they also have to have the knowledge too, which that's going to lead me into the REAP, which is like such a unique program. What's the vision behind creating it, and why is it so important right now? Let's get into that.
Oh my gosh, I love talking about REAP. So,
Yeah.
and you mentioned it before, the Real Estate Asset Program is what that
Hmm.
stands for.
Hmm.
We founded the Real Estate Asset Program as I'll simplify it. It was a $2 million pledge investment fund from
Hmm.
7 different investors back in 2021. So we're about 5 years into it. And the idea behind it was if we put up this $2 million and we allocate somewhere between, so we'll make LP investments. We're not investing in REITs in the stock market. These
Hmm.
are limited partnership level investments with sponsors who are raising outside equity. Getting the students involved in that process from, we bring in the deals, the students will analyze them. They will do a deep level of market analysis, and they will actually pitch these to an investment committee, which is made up of all those investors of the $2 million, by the way.
The 7, yes. Okay.
Exactly. And those investors are asking real questions because it's their
Right.
real money that's going to be
Right.
invested. The students
Right.
are
This isn't
learning
a stock market club.
exactly. But this is, in real time, the students are having to adjust and give answers because it matters whether or not they want to invest in this. So, an example would that be, hey, I noticed that the parking ratio on this property is lower than I would expect. Feels like that's actually going to be a detriment from an investment standpoint. How do we get beyond that? And if you don't have a really good answer to that question as a 20 or 21-year-old student, they might
Hmm.
not invest in that. Again, wish I would
Right.
have had that when I was in school, right, Tori?
Right. Well, those are the things that are going to make or break a deal. I mean, especially if whether you're working for a developer or you're working as a broker, is your client going to buy that deal? Is the landlord developer you're going to work with going to buy that deal? If there's a parking ratio issue, if there's an environmental issue, and you're teaching your students to do all that leg up research, and not even just that, but present it to experts in the real estate field who are going to pound them with the questions. And that's the thing, is then they'll know for next time when they're analyzing an investment what they should be looking at, and even how to do a presentation, because this business in brokerage and development, that's all you're doing is presentations, right? So
Not that I think we'll go down the AI route, but I know a lot of us are thinking about this. When you think about this new world that we're in, where AI is such a huge tool, and you worry about things like, okay, is my analyst just putting this into AI and spitting out
let's
an
talk
answer
about that.
and
Yeah.
doesn't understand it? This is kind of the antithesis of some of this stuff. If you're going
Hmm.
to ICSC and you're sitting at that table with two people negotiating a deal, that's not
Right.
AI. You are really learning that. If you are
Hmm.
pitching to an investment committee and there's about 10
Hmm.
questions behind what they may
Right.
be able to ask, but you need to know the answers to all of them. You can't just rely on AI. It's this experiential learning that actually drives more of that, what I think is the modern day, what do I need to
Hmm.
know, than just sitting back and saying, well, I could kind of maybe put this assignment prompt into ChatGPT and get an answer and move on.
Right.
You can't
Mhm.
hide from that in experiential learning opportunities that a lot of schools like Marquette are really leaning into nationally. And REAP is like a cornerstone of that. There's 20, by the way, there's like 20 investment programs that are doing this nationally.
Hmm.
I need to give a shout out to a couple of them. University of North Carolina has been doing this for a really long time. I love the
Okay.
work that they're doing. My
Great.
colleagues at Villanova started an undergraduate, more club based. It's not in the classroom, but they're doing a really great job. I've got some colleagues at places like Florida State that are doing this, maybe a little bit more on the REIT side, but man, you get the
Okay.
macro view of what's going on in real
Mhm.
estate sectors from
Right.
that. Really admire a lot of these, and then places like the University of Colorado are starting new investment programs because we realize collectively, as my peer said, that this is the future of higher education. And I say that, and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense, right, Tori?
Right. No, but I like the term the experiential learning, because I think that's what parents are even scared about with their kids, like that they are not, they're so into social media, not talking as much, texting. Um, and you do have to learn to still socialize. And your school is, in this program forcing, it's not forcing, but that's part of the curriculum is you have to talk to real people, whether they're the seven people with the funding your program, funding this, or at an ICSC. And those are skills you can't learn in a classroom.
No,
People
no.
skills.
Can I give you one example of this, which is kind of fun? And you know what, Tori, you're gonna laugh because you're like, oh, we take this for granted.
I'm
One
sure.
of the things that we early on that the students were learning during REAP was how much our investors focused on the quality of the sponsor in the deal. And you go, if you think about it, the quality of the sponsor doesn't find its way into multiple chapters with any sort of real estate textbook,
No,
but it is everything in
it
our
is.
relationship driven business. And these
Right.
these little, this is what I love too. We're kind of turning students into deal junkies. Like they just can't
Right.
wait for that new deal. And by the way, it's not uncommon for Vito Taphorn is the director of our real estate asset program. Vito, 2 weeks ago, as an example, about 5-10 minutes before class, he got a new deal. And he said, throwing out what we're doing in class today, brought the deal to class and said, okay, analyze, go.
Yeah.
And that's what they spent. How much more real world
It's
can you
so
get? Right?
exciting, but it's so exciting. Like it doesn't make school a drag when you're really being interactive in real world decisions with real money, right? Like how fun is that?
But yeah, and the students start to react to that because they go, oh, okay. The investment committee, they keep asking about the sponsor. Now their first questions are, all right, who's the sponsor? And what is
Right.
their track record? And,
Right.
what type
Oh,
of experience do they have
if I only had
specifically?
learned that.
How
I
many
mean, my
lessons come out of
worst
that, right?
investment is, yeah, I mean, as a young, naive person, right? I actually just did a post about that, actually.
No way. What was it about?
Oh, I mean, what you're teaching your students, like to get in the gritty background of whether you want to say sponsor, the GP who you're investing with was what mine was based off, especially if you're going to be an LP.
Yeah,
How do they, how are they, are they honest people? They have high integrity levels. Are they communicating? Are they sending quarterly reports? Because anyone can put in an operating agreement what they want, but are they really letting their books be open? I've had that happen too, where you just don't get any numbers.
right. Yeah,
I mean, but but the thing is, it's like anything. I mean, it's like just like buying say you're a lessee at a shopping center, go talk to all the tenants or at that office building, see what the landlord's really like. What's going on top down? Who's running the show, right? And what is their integrity level? Because if they have a low integrity level and are dishonest, cheap, lazy, not keeping up with things, like you don't want to be an investor with them, nor do you want to sit and go lease a property from them either.
totally. And that's the funny part. That what we love about the real estate business is, as
Hmm.
they say, it's not rocket surgery. Uh,
Right,
so I think these are kind of those lessons that the experiential aspect when you have an academic program that says, yes,
right.
we care about what's inside the classroom, but we want to get you out of the classroom as much as possible.
Yes.
That's where it really starts to shine, because we ultimately, these are things that we take for granted. But if the more you can learn these earlier, the better it
Hmm.
gets. And God
It's
bless
invaluable.
professionals that
It's
lead.
invaluable.
Right.
Right.
It's invaluable. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun to do this kind of
Mhm.
stuff, Tori, as you can imagine.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Let's talk more and dive into Acre and why is that your personal mission?
Yeah. I'm so proud of ACRE. It stands for the Associates in Commercial Real Estate Program. So
Hmm.
ACRE was founded back in 2004 here at Marquette University as an
Okay.
outside of the classroom, really adult based, I call it like executive training program. And so it's
Okay.
a 24 to 26 weeks, once a week, for 3 hours at night, where all 100%, historically, it's been 100% men and women of color, mainly from Southeast Wisconsin, have come and learned about real estate investment, development, and management. And so what I say
Hmm.
is, I love this saying, like, this is not a be all end all for learning real estate. We all know you can't
Right.
just
But it's a
one
good
class and now
taste.
I'm going to go be a real estate developer. So I always
Right.
I joke, but I'm serious about it with the student.
Hmm.
If you need to do if you want to be, kind of a successful developer, and you need to know A through Z for the deal, right? This class at most is going to give you parts A through E. And then, steps like F through S, you're going to get exposure to, but you're not going to learn them in a way where you can maybe really, truly drive them, but you'll know enough to be
Right.
dangerous. And steps
Right.
C through Z, you will have no idea until you're out there. And so,
Exactly. I like that you're honest about that because
yeah,
that's so true. There's again that segment you can't just learn at school, but
totally.
you're giving them a backbone.
Totally. And I'm just a really big champion for what I believe is we need to have kind of a little bit more equity in terms of how we look at the world. And when we look at
Hmm.
our cities are made up of a lot of different kinds of
Right.
people that
Right.
are a lot of different skin colors and come from a
Hmm.
lot of different backgrounds. And
Right.
I actually think that our city is thriving if no matter
Hmm.
what neighborhood you live in, you understand how real estate impacts your world and how
Oh yeah.
driving investment in real estate could actually
Hmm.
drive investment in your neighborhood, could drive in a
100%.
thriving community. And
Right.
that's what's at the heart of ACRE, is just making sure that we are sharing those opportunities with everybody who lives here in Milwaukee, which historically has been seen as one of the most segregated cities in the United States. But
Hmm.
what better laboratory to start to deliver on results for trying to change
Right.
that narrative? It's
Hmm.
it's been incredible to watch the more than 350 men and women graduate from that program in the last 22
Wow.
years. So yeah, we're really proud of that. By
How
the way,
many years? How long does it take? The program.
it takes a full 9 months to go through it,
Okay.
including,
Okay.
and it's all taught by college professors. Um,
Okay.
well, college professors slash practitioners, of course, because that
Right.
balance is so great.
Right.
They, real exams. They
Hmm.
three exams, including a cumulative final exam. They do some case studies and site tours, and they do a final comprehensive project where they're pitching a development deal that kind of pulls all those parts together. Not to prepare them to be developers, but to put them in a situation where they have to pull everything they've learned together and really network with professionals to try to get these real experiences. It's
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Oh
I
yeah,
love it.
yeah. So it's a blast. And by the way, that led to a summer program for high school students, mainly of color, here in Milwaukee as well.
Okay.
And that's a week long program where I didn't realize how important this would be. Getting students onto a college campus and staying overnight in dorms
Oh.
at the
Okay.
high school level, incredible experience for high school students. So we started that a couple of years ago as well, and it's been a really fun experience. And this year alone, by the way, we had students from all over the country applying. We had over 130 students apply for 24 spots.
And can anyone apply? Any high school?
Historically, it's been more students of color, but anybody can apply to this.
Okay.
It's been an incredible experience for the students.
That sounds awesome.
It's less classroom time and more, let's do it, site tours, and have fun people, and then do fun stuff at night, like go to a
Yeah.
Brewers game, or
Right.
bowling, or playing some games. But ultimately, we just try to make it as fun as possible to expose students to what do career paths in commercial real estate look like, and how could that matter in terms of you feeling like you're driving meaning in your life, right?
When you're saying high school age, is it junior? Is it mostly juniors? Is there an age limit or is it 14 through 18?
Yeah, most of the time it's juniors and seniors, or
Okay.
so right, just graduated high school or going into your
Mhm.
senior year.
Okay.
I know for a fact we're admitting a couple of sophomores that are going to be juniors next fall, even this year.
Okay.
Um,
Nice.
and
Okay.
we even have some go-getter freshmen that apply that we're like, you're awesome. Come back again, apply again next year because you're going to be one of the first
Seriously.
ones we look at, right?
Right. No, I think that's a fantastic
Yeah,
program for a
it's a
week for
blast.
high school kids.
Shout out to the Real Estate Executive Council and NAOP, who've kind of started as a partnership supporting these programs back in the day. They
Okay.
initially, Real Estate Executive Council, we no longer pair up with them each year to drive this, but we feel like we're cousin programs with some of the work that they're doing, and we love, the legacy that they left, kind of driving this. So yeah, we're appreciative.
I love that. Well, speaking of legacy, like when you think about legacy, is it more about the programs you built or the people you've impacted? Both?
Oh my gosh, the people, 1,000%. You know, we kind of see the ability, and this is why we really lean into spending time with our peers at other universities, because this is
Mhm.
going to sound really crazy. A lot of people, I think, believe there's a lot of what I would call competition between different universities. And I think that's easy because, for example, if you think about March Madness and we're all watching,
Yeah.
these basketball games, you got two schools going against each other, and that's how we think about it. But the reality is that when you're talking about real estate programs like this, I love collaborating with other universities from around the country. There's so much that we can learn, and there's so
Right.
much that we can bring back to help support our students. And if some of the ideas that we have, we can also share out as well. So it's a give and take that makes those programs better. First of all, it's rare, less often than you would think. Students are looking at just real estate programs, especially undergrads. They kind of want a school first. I want a
Right.
private school, maybe a great basketball program or something like that. Or no, I want a big public state school for, the football games, whatever.
Right.
Students kind of know what they want to get into from that standpoint. So we don't compete as much as we would think, especially when you start to get further down the road of considerations, which is like, oh, I think I might want to go into real estate. God bless the students that
Mm.
know. But the
Right.
second part is like, if we do this well and our programs nationally share best practices, what we're
Mhm.
really doing is we're driving unbelievable learning opportunities and growth opportunities for students all around the country. And what that means is better talent for our real estate industry. And so
Absolutely.
that's the legacy, is can we
Right.
all work together to drive these amazing experiences for students, which makes the commercial real estate industry better. And that's honestly, we talk about those things,
100%.
and that's what gets us really excited. We're not doing that in a day to day with other programs. We focus on our students every single day. But
Right.
you can understand the spirit and the excitement around what that would be like, and what the opportunity is in our industry.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, with studying and, teaching at like such a high level, like what are the biggest shifts that you're seeing in commercial real estate right now that you're talking about with your students?
Yeah. So I love this question. And by the way, for context, I teach the real estate financial modeling course here at Marquette. But I get to put my analyst hat on and tell
Right.
them that I'm not, even though I've done this professionally, I'm not actually as good at Excel. Uh, now that I know enough to know what I don't know. And so,
Yeah,
by
I
the
know.
way, none of you are good at Excel either. Um, it's like lesson number one, right?
Mhm.
But the things that we're thinking about are, so number one is AI, and we kind of mentioned it earlier, but all students are thinking about AI, and they're in this weird world where, in some ways, I think they're almost nervous about, if I'm using AI in school, does that mean I'm cheating? And we're trying
That's a
to
big topic.
get them outside of that, because the reality is, Tori, I see AI more like, it's not a perfect metaphor, but more like, when the calculator was invented. Well, this is a
Yeah.
tool that you can help to do your work more
Mhm.
efficiently and more quickly. And, yes, is knowing long division a lost art? Absolutely. But I'm not sure that we really care about knowing how to do long division by hand anymore. We care
Some
about
things
higher
just
level
become
work about,
obsolete. Yeah.
exactly, what does using that calculator mean in terms of the output, and how do we
Right.
use that to analyze the situation? AI in many ways is very similar, where it is a tool that's
Mhm.
very powerful, unlike anything we've ever
Yep.
experienced before.
Oh,
But we
yeah.
as an institution have to find ways not to expect that students adjust to us, but that
Mhm.
we adjust to the real world and how AI is being used in the real world.
Right.
so that we can
Right.
bring that back into the classroom. So that's why we actually launched last summer something called the AI in Real Estate Lab.
Nice.
And I encourage anybody to think about this with a local university. So the
Yeah.
concept was, um, we need to learn about it as a university. Companies are trying to learn about this, and students want to learn about this as well. So what if we took, for example, 8 companies and 8 students, and we paired them up, and we had meetings every, let's call it 4 to 6 weeks, where there was kind of like an accountability check of where are we on that journey, and are there some projects we can start to use that are really ROI based? How are we really implementing and integrating AI into our workflows to make us more efficient?
Okay.
And we're at a point in this technology where you can disintermediate this world with students, right? The professional world isn't and students are kind of near the same place. So putting them
Right.
together can kind of be really fun, and we have had a blast doing this.
Oh,
And
I
the
bet.
lessons learned from that have been unbelievable. And now we're
Mhm.
using those and bringing them into the classroom, which is also a lot of fun as well.
Well, I'm glad. So where how do you see the industry even with AI? Like, I guess you don't have a crystal ball, but I mean, how do you see it really changing our industry in 5 to 10 years? Like, I'm
So
sure students are, because I'm kind of going back to the students being, nervous if they're cheating. Where's this going? But
yeah,
I mean, I know my view on it.
what's your view,
I
Tori?
wonder what your view is. My view is I think you hit the nail on the head. This is about everything in life's about being efficient,
Uh-huh.
saving time, because AI has helped all of us here save so much time with research analytics. I mean, there's certain things like AI cannot do, obviously, but it gives us more time to do what we need to do in business, because business is time consuming. I mean, you're on the phone, especially with real estate, with, or you're researching. But if you could cut that time in half, like, why wouldn't you? Because then you'll be able to do more deals, or maybe you give yourself some a little bit more free time. It gives you more driving time to go look at, sites and areas and travel to meet people to produce even more business, right? Because I mean, the whole point is, let's keep this economy going here, right? Not be dragged down by tedious tasks like long division that we don't need to do anymore. It's silly. That's not, like, my dad would always say. I mean, he was in international business, like, focus on what's going to make you money. Is that going to make you money? Then no, don't focus on it.
Yeah. It's a capitalist society. We need to figure this out.
Right.
I shout out to
That's right.
your audience may enjoy this. There's a shout out to Spencer Burton at adventuresinCRE.com and CRE agents. He
Hmm.
he spoke to us a little while ago, and he's truly an expert in this kind of emerging AI and real estate space. And what he showed us a slide, when he was talking to me and our board last year, that
Okay.
kind of said, okay, so if you think about this as a graph, this is a good way to illustrate this. And you kind of have the value and then like a duration. And when you think about the value of $1 and the value of a minute, that
Hmm.
when you are young, the value of a minute is very low. But
Right.
when you are young, the value of $1 is very high. Now, as you get older, the value of $1 starts to decrease and the
Right.
value of your time starts to increase.
Right.
And I think what's funny is that technology tends to be adopted by the
Hmm.
young much more quickly, right? It
Very.
has to do with
Hmm.
brain development and neuroplasticity and things like that. God, I sound like an academic, don't I? Anyway, but and yet, those who are learning this really to save time, because that's really what it is. You mentioned that several times. They tend to be the youngest
Hmm.
that are in it. And so what we're really seeing, and I'm going to go, so now I'm going to answer your question about where do we see this going from an AI standpoint. So number one, I think that expectations from a talent standpoint by the industry for the like AI knowledge by students that are coming out are only going to raise.
Right.
So that's number one. Number two, I also think that students' ability to leverage those tools so that they can then do more thinking, and a higher cognitive load about what do I like. So I have all this knowledge. I have this incredible tool at my fingertips. What does that actually mean? And, hey, Tori, I'm your analyst. You're like, hey, I don't need you to show me the whole analysis. I need you to explain to me what you think this means. That's more
Right.
valuable to you,
Yep.
knowing that I am leveraging these tools. And so one is they need to understand these tools. I really think the industry is going to start expecting that. And then two, that they have a lot more of an ability to then think when they deliver this. And so three, and I think this is kind of the really big one, I think that people are we're kind of in this kind of pendulum swing when you have new technologies like this. And I think the pendulum has really swung to, oh, it can do everything for us. And what we're starting to see is it's coming back to people saying, oh, wait a sec, it can't do exactly what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not as intuitive, or I have to take more steps than I thought. And yes, all of that is true. And so I believe that what people are starting and are going to start more and more to understand, which is what we're teaching,
Mm-hmm.
is that you like to truly maximize AI, you actually have to do what I would call a think then act type formula. You need to spend time doing some thinking
Mm-hmm.
so that you can, what do you want to call it? Put it into the input or
Input.
the
Yeah.
prompt or whatever. But you actually, if you really want to maximize it, you putting in that effort early on gives you
Right.
a 10x result later. And
Yes.
so that's how we're teaching students for it, where we're actually showing them examples of, or doing things like, having them do an assignment and then testing them right away on what they put into that assignment. And the
Right.
recall is not there. There's a lot of science behind this.
Oh yeah, I
And then
agree.
showing them, okay, now do the mental load, and we're going to teach you kind of how to use some of these tools, but you're going to have to learn a lot on your own,
Right.
and then deliver an output, which, by the way, is much better than you would have done without using AI. But
Right.
because you kind of use some of that mental load early on, you
Mm-hmm.
retain it that much better, and the output is way better. And that ultimately is, I know, where our industry is going, where we're just going to start training ourselves to be better prepared
Mm-hmm.
to put in better inputs, knowing that we're going to get better outputs. But we're still going through that right now, learning
Right.
that.
No, but that's great, great points. Great points. And this is just a day and age where even I know it's always conflicting, with parents even letting their kids have a cell phone,
Right.
but and they're conflicted about using social media. But at the end of the day, look, there's all these parental controls anyways, and it's I think a parent and a school's responsibility to teach them what's right from wrong, right? But to me, the faster you get your brain going on all these things, because just think about it, even like from a marketing standpoint, marketing yourself, how many people are raising hundreds of millions of capital because they have learned social media and have it down to the wire from a
Yeah.
marketing standpoint,
Yeah.
right? To me, it's like you can't diss what's going on. Out there, and but obviously using it productively. You've worked, I was thinking about this too. I wanted to switch gears out of technology and go into, I don't know if students have so much of a thought about it, but do they start any conversations around like, you know working at the office, not working? Because right now, out of COVID, at this stage of the game, like a lot of offices are not filled up with people coming every day, right? What's that conversation around office space and back to work? And like, what's your perspective on where that's even heading?
Yeah. So we're
And does
big.
it concern your students for training?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, we're big fans of just being in the office. This is
Hmm.
actually kind of an expectation that we're setting for students. Is it felt like the expectation that you're only going to work in the office a few days a week. We've kind of swung back, at least within real estate. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't mean that, there isn't more flexibility, but even just last week, so we spent some time, I spent some time with my peers at a conference, and we had Ryan Neal from BizNow and Select Leaders come and speak to
Okay.
us. They have data on hiring trends nationally. And one of the questions that we asked Ryan was, because they kind of can do a meta analysis of all the postings for all the job opportunities across the
Hmm.
country that are on their site. Incredible data. And we said, what are you seeing in terms of companies communicating work from home policies or things like that we should know in terms of being able to prepare and set expectations for our students? And he said,
Hmm.
he said it is basically gone from these postings advertising some sort of policy or 3 days a week or something like that. It's just gone. Now, he was quick to say that doesn't mean that, we have an incredible real estate company partner, a big national firm here in town, and I was at their offices on Monday and for a meeting, and they didn't have
Okay.
very many people in it. We said, so what's going on with this? And they said, oh, well, Monday is one of those flex days that people
Okay.
can kind of work from home.
Huh.
And also it's spring break for a lot of students, so there weren't a lot of
Right.
people.
Right. That's true.
And so that may still be kind of, an internal policy, but people aren't promoting it like they used to. I think there's an expectation to be in the office. And certainly with our students, we're pushing that as well. Flexibility, great. Yes, I think we're in a new world on that. But working from home a whole bunch of days of the week, we're not setting that expectation at all.
Okay. That's very interesting to hear. I was curious about that.
It's a great question.
But I think the thing is though, is as long as they have a good mentor, and even if one mentor's in one day, the other's in another day, I think they're still going to get a good training, because even if everyone's in the office, not everyone's training them anyways.
Totally.
They just got to really make sure they have one-on-one mentorship.
Totally. Yeah.
So,
And that's why we push that though as well. Be in the
yeah.
office. It's
Yeah.
those water cooler conversations,
Right.
or by the coffee machine, or wherever,
Yeah.
your fridge full of sodas
Right.
or whatever, or that person who is you're working a little bit later and it's 5:45 and wow, they are relaxed right now, and
Right.
you can open up in a conversation that you wouldn't have otherwise. We've all had those special moments, haven't we, Tori?
Right. For sure. No, for sure. For sure. How do you approach leadership differently today than you did, say, earlier in your career?
Yeah,
You're more seasoned now, so
my goodness. I mean, I think I think even though I went to a Jesuit university
Mhm.
twice for a degree,
Yeah.
um, I don't know that I started to see the power of servant leadership
Hmm.
until I was in the workplace and had made mistakes with managing people, and starting to recognize,
Yeah.
wow, when I truly am thinking about what's probably good for them. Now we need to take care of our business and we need to take care of what we're working on. But when I can help create an environment for them where they're excited to come to work, they
Yeah.
feel like I'm protecting them. If there's things coming down they don't fully understand, and that I'm really being open and transparent at all times, as much as I possibly can, it creates this environment where they feel like they can be more authentically themselves,
Hmm.
and then ideally love coming to work and bring their best self to work every single day. And
Right.
all of that comes back to this concept of being a servant leader. You have to think about what would be best for my people,
Right.
and then your people are going to take care of the rest. There involves a lot of trust in that. Dare I say, it involves faith to
For
do some of
sure.
that stuff. But I mean, that's the thing that mistakes early in my career of saying, hey, you got to get this done, and kind of leading a little bit more with an iron fist or a little bit more with the stick than the carrot. Um, Boy, you start to realize like, it just doesn't. Not only does it not work as well as you want it to, and it
No.
doesn't feel good when you're doing it, and it's way more fun to do it this other way when you create an environment where you go, my favorite day of the week is when our team gets together for 1 hour and we talk about what we're working on and our priorities and tracking, what we're doing. I mean, that, you love the people you work with. How lucky are you, right?
100%. 100%. And I mean, that's something like you may not always get that environment getting your first job out of school, but sometimes you just need to get that first job and then you figure out where there are great environments.
Can I put on, I need to say something else about that though, Tori,
Hmm.
because we've done a lot of thinking about this. We've talked a lot about what kind of program we want to be.
Hmm.
And this idea of creating a sense of belonging and community within
Hmm.
the industry is actually really important to us. I'll give you an example of this. We've been in situations before where, maybe we've been at a conference and,
Yeah.
somebody, look, we love our university. We think we're incredible. We know we're going on the right track, but also we're, a smaller private D1 school in Milwaukee, and Milwaukee's not on one of the coasts.
Right.
And we've had experiences before where we were like, almost laughing, like, where's Marquette? Or what does that even
Hmm.
mean? Or kind of, letting ego kind of be worn on their sleeve in a way that's unnecessary. And
For
so
sure.
we've started to share some of those stories with our students as a way to say, you can build community and belonging with people in a way where it's going to build respect and they're
Right.
going to want to work with you.
Right.
And I think that other mindset, and
Huge.
servant leadership is like this, right? But like that
Hmm.
idea of like, I really need to find some humility and drop my ego more often. Um,
Right.
it's almost like a constant reminder, especially I'm sure a lot of really successful people are watching your show, and that's hard sometimes when you're making the big decisions and people are
Right.
coming to you for the biggest challenges, and you've kind of worked your way up to where you are. It's almost like, you know, reminding yourself to check yourself to say, but I'm just one person, and
Right.
coming at every situation with a level of humility is
Mhm.
actually what will continue to drive my success, because people want to work with me. I don't know if you agree with that or not, Tori, but I
Oh,
believe.
100%. I mean, there's like a twofold to my answer is that I think I've noticed this, and even in hiring, people can get really lured by, the egotistical leaders. Um, it's, they are persuasive. It seems appealing. And then they get there and they're like, oh my gosh, like, what did I just get myself into, when they get into the real reality, where that's where, again, doing your due diligence on where you want to work is, I would rather be with anyone I've seen that is ultra successful, has such humility. And by the way, sometimes you don't even know about them so much because they're so under the radar, not flashing some, I call it, I mean, an ego is, you're really being a fake, dishonest person, really. I mean, you're not really your authentic self. And people, I think more so in even the upcoming generations, they want to work with people who are real and authentic,
Yeah.
period.
Amen. I
Right.
think some of the I
And
think some of the most powerful words in these conversations are like, uh, "Hey, I'm wondering if you could help me."
right. Well, yeah, not everyone's going to help you. And that's when you learn, that's when you get there and you realize when you made a mistake.
Well, but totally, yeah. But also from an ego standpoint, especially as a leader, to say you're asking somebody else like for advice or
Right.
help. I mean, it feels a little bit strange, but people are so open to just being treated with respect and
Right.
feeling like you're coming at this not from a place of you're trying to protect something. You're truly
Right.
trying to be curious and learn. And we talk about that, coming with a mindset of curiosity and wanting to learn too. Important.
And that's the only way you're going to learn is by asking a lot of questions.
Yes, thank
Right.
you.
And the thing is, if I think for younger people, it is ridiculous to be intimidated of people because somebody was in your shoes at some point, right? Like they didn't get there by knowing everything. It's impossible. You're going to learn until you die. You're learning every day. So ask the questions early in your career, as many as you can, and hook on to the people who are willing to teach you it as well. I mean, some people are big givers, some people aren't. And, you got to latch on to the ones that are willing to mentor
Amen. Yeah. And
freely, happily. I ask
amen.
questions all the time. I don't know everything.
Right? But that's what makes you so good,
I
because
don't
you're
know
trying
everything about being
to
a
learn.
parent. I don't know everything about running my business. I don't know a lot about being a good a wife. I mean, it's just like there's no playbook. There's no playbook for your life. That's why you got to ask questions.
Oh my gosh, I totally agree with you. Yep.
So, yeah, I love that. And you're actually the second person I've interviewed that really talked about humility, which is a word I feel that needs to get out there more. Like, not as many people I don't think some people don't even know the definition of it.
It'll be good for all of us, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Well, you're a husband, you're a father of three, kids are not in college. I mean, they're young. I mean, how has your family, shaped your priorities as a leader and your definition of a success now? Because you change a lot when you get married, but then you really change when you have kids and you
amen.
change in your business life, your personal life,
Well, I mean,
etc.
a major shout out to my wife. I mean,
Mhm.
she's the smartest person I know. She is the most emotionally intelligent person that I know.
That's
Um,
great.
I am unbelievably lucky to be married to her, and she makes me better every day. And that partnership, the first kind of true, this is forever type of partnership, the humility that comes with that, the ability to to admit when you're wrong, the ability to find a common way forward when things are a challenge, and then
Right.
also, by the way, to just really celebrate all the great stuff too. And there's just nothing better. And I know, because of incredible people like my wife, that I've been able to find environments where, I'm surrounded by people who challenge me, but they really care. And because we're all so united in that kind of thing, we kind of have a foundation. I feel like, I found that in my marriage, and now I seek that in like a work setting. We have a
Right.
foundation that drives us forward.
Right.
And it's built on trust. It's built. I mean, you could go into like Patrick Lencioni's like the five dysfunctions of a team, but it's built on things like that, trust and foundation. And are we in this together, and the transparency? And then you start to
Mhm.
realize that even when things are tough, if if
Right.
you're kind of connected on all those things, it's going to be okay. And
Right.
My goodness, sometimes we just need to know it's going to be okay.
A lot, right? That I'm safe.
Right?
Everything's going to work out. I know. I mean, I think the structure, I mean, that's a whole other topic of, who you marry too, which I don't think they teach that in school. I mean, that's a really big foundation for, you moving forward in your career too. I
Yeah.
think,
It's the
have
important
a
stuff,
sound
Tori.
home
Yes.
life.
Yeah, we're
And
getting into the good stuff.
empowering relationships. Yeah, to empower you to the next level.
Totally. Yeah.
I have to give kudos to all the spouses out there that support each other in so many ways. Um, when I wanted to wrap this up. For someone who's like listening, who wants to break into real estate, level up, you know, what advice would you give them right now
Hmm.
beyond learning AI? But
I've been quoted recently as saying showing up is undefeated, and I really
I
believe
love
that.
that. I love that.
The idea that you know, I think that the very first step to breaking into real estate, or to going even deeper in real estate is just it truly is just showing up, and that means a lot of things in a lot of different venues. It certainly means things like, are you going to your local brokers events, are you going to NAIAP, are you going to a conference, but are you getting coffees with people, are you willing to exude kind of some of those values that you and I have talked about from all this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, are you showing up for yourself to learn skills that you need to
Mhm.
know, whether that's financial modeling skills, or really understanding how AI, you can leverage that to be more valuable, to kind of drive that value proposition, because you need to be able to know, what is my value when I go to talk to somebody. um,
Right.
you just have to show up, but showing up is undefeated, and being passive really didn't get very many people far. And so we just remind our students at the end of the day, go to that event, you know
Mhm.
go grab that coffee meeting, go to that conference, sign up for that case competition,
Right.
go to that class. You never know when that class is going to be the one you just don't forget. um,
Right.
Show up, so I'm a big believer in that, Tori. I'm
I
sure.
love I love that because
Yeah.
I mean we've had experiences. I mean, not just my firm. I mean, not even just in real estate. I mean, even I was talking to my accountant. I mean, there's some people that don't even show up to interviews. I mean, it's wild, right? Or they'll sign a contract to come work and don't show up either to come to work. It's and I think the thing is people don't realize, they don't know who they're going to maybe encounter later in life, and people don't forget those things in your name.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It seems simple, but like all really important things, it's not easy, right?
Exactly. Well, what's the final, like, if you look back, what's your final really solid piece of advice that you would give anybody out here right now?
you know, I, I look, I come from the education space. And so what I have found is, I, my big encouragement is, go get involved with the university. I mean, what I've found is that some of the volunteers that we have, board members, donors, but even people who didn't go to this school, when they've leaned in, the level of, I think they almost always get more out of it than they put into it. And
Oh,
there's a lot of reasons why to engage with our universities, whatever university is in your town or nearby. Look,
right.
it'd be great to get to know professors and
Mhm.
staff, because that could help with getting students and interns, and maybe the
Oh,
top
yeah,
talent starts coming your way. But
for
also,
sure.
I've also found that when you have to teach something, you have to really know something to be able to teach it well.
Right.
And so spending time mentoring or guest lecturing, or, taking a student on a site tour, it unlocks something, I think, in people, where they understand that even those smaller acts of service
Hmm.
make them feel so good that they recognize, I think I'd like to do more of that. And universities are such a great way to really
Right.
lean into that space. So for a lot of people, if you haven't thought about reaching out to local universities, now, sometimes they're very busy, or they're in the middle of the semester and they may not respond as quickly.
Right.
The good ones know they can use all the help they can get, because we're raising a generation of real estate talent every year. And every year we start again with students who we have to teach everything we taught the year before.
Hmm.
Having people who are willing to help pour into those students to change the face of this industry in the future, it means
Hmm.
more than you can possibly imagine. But people get way more out of it than I think that they realize before they start getting involved. And so I'd love to leave your listeners with that.
Oh, that's a great piece of advice, especially for any business owner to get involved with the university because everything you said, even if they went there or didn't. Well, where can everyone find you?
You know what's great about working for a university? If you Google that person's name, Andy Hunt Marquette, you
Hmm.
easily find my bio and email address. And I love connecting with people too. LinkedIn is great
Hmm.
as well. So,
Okay.
Tori, I just can't thank you enough for getting the chance to spend time today and loved our conversation. You are
Oh,
truly a talent on a national basis, and I
thank
think we're
you.
so lucky that you are sharing this, that you are serving our industry
I'm sharing
by
my life with
sharing these
people.
insights. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I really appreciate you coming on because you have so much great insight. And it was a very, to me, a powerful conversation because we're going from, education to, you know, people's careers and how to build them. Not just from like a total academia standpoint, but from like a whole person,
Amen.
standpoint.
Yeah.
So it definitely should be inspiring for people and inspiring for people to know how much more advanced even the real estate programs are getting at universities such as Marquette. Like that would have been awesome if that was around when I went when I went to school, right?
See, here we are. You're saying it.
And that so many universities are doing it, as you mentioned. There's about 20 solid ones out there that people could look into. But I really appreciate you sharing your story, your perspective. Your heart's really in what you do, which I love. And I just really want to thank everyone for listening to another episode of the Tori Nook Talk Show, which you could catch all the episodes across all platforms, which is Apple, Spotify, my YouTube channel at Tori Nook. It's TorinoOK, and that's my name across every social platform. And I'd love to hear from you regarding this interview. Make sure to click subscribe and leave a review and email me any questions at hello@torinook.com. Thanks.